Hello and welcome to Gutshot, home of the hottest takes for Magic the Gathering. I'm Frederick, and joining me as always is my co-host Will.
That's right. Welcome to Gutshot, the only Magic the Gathering podcast still listing Space Godzilla Death Corona for over $50 on eBay. Fred, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty alright. I'm a little bit stressed about school, but it's going to be fine. I'm enjoying playing some Modern lately, and life is good in general.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. I know that you were super excited for Modern Horizons 2, and I know that you picked up a couple of cards. So yeah, let's just go right into our opener here. And I see that you have a request. What's going on this? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit pissed because Ragavan, the card I was most excited about for Modern Horizons that wasn't just a reprint of a fetch land, I got one of them early, as listeners will recall from last week. You know, I pulled my expensive card and traded it for a few fetch lands in the Ragavan, but he's gone up so much that I just can't justify spending $70 on a second one. So in order to make me feel a little bit better, will you join me in making an addendum to our Political Compass episode and officially declaring Ragavan a libertarian?
Libertarian, yes, he definitely deserves to be there. Man, $70 a pop, that is insane. And I know that there are a couple of like top tier Modern decks that have just immediately slotted four of him in there. Man, that's rough.
Yeah. I only need two for Team or Cascade, although I might change it to the version that only cascades into what you want, like the all zero, and nothing that costs two or less other than like the suspend spells. And then I won't need Ragavans. But either way, I love the card, so I'm hopeful that I'll get to acquire a second copy. But if not, I can just play with the one, or I can switch to that and build a commander deck around it. But yeah, Ragavan's dummy expensive. Although luckily none of the other cards from the set are. They've all gone down pretty hard.
All right, well, that's good to hear. Like Fred just said, a while back we did an episode that I thought was one of our better ones, a really good one that I'm proud of, where we took fan favorite characters, planeswalkers from the Magic universe and put them on the political spectrum. So if you're a newer listener, watcher, go back and check out that episode out. I'm also very proud of the thumbnail art I came up with for that. But yeah, I think as we move through like new sets, and especially these specialty sets that are really focusing on old fan favorite characters like Ragavan, and then introducing new characters, we got to do an update to our Political Compass episode. You think you might want to do that, Fred?
Yeah, I think eventually we should. Maybe if the people want it, that'll be our anniversary episode.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good idea. Well, okay, I know we got a lot to talk about with our main topic, but before we get there, hey, thank you for listening to this episode of Gutshot. It really does mean a lot to us. So if you like what you're hearing and you're watching this on YouTube, give the video a like. We'd really appreciate it. It shows that you like what we're doing. And subscribe to the channel if you want more of that juicy Gutshot content. The bell icon's there if you want to click that for notifications, but more than anything, we want to hear what you have to say. What did you think about our conversation today, the topic that we're talking about, 100 card Historic Brawl? Do you agree with us, disagree with us? Let us know in the YouTube comments below, or you can tweet at us at GutshotPod. So with all that said, let's move on to our main topic, 100 card Historic Brawl. So this was announced a couple of weeks ago, and they put out a Magic Arena announcement that on June 18th, so this is about a week or so ago, there was going to be a Friday Night Magic at Home event on Arena featuring 100 card Historic Brawl for the first time. And then after that Friday, for almost a week, June 19th through the 25th, it was a week-long festival queue, I'm not sure what they call it, for 100 card Historic Brawl. Those types of queues where you pay an entry fee and then you get to just play as much as you want, and then you get like I believe they were Japanese alt art styles for the Mystical Archive cards.
You are correct.
For your first 5 wins, but you could just keep playing after that if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and read what they put on the their reasoning. Go ahead and quote them. Given Historic's larger card pool, we believe 100 card decks, including the Commander, make sense for the Historic side of Brawl, but we wanted to see it in action before committing to a decision. So it seems like they were using these events to gain data on whether people wanted 100 card brawl decks. So it's not completely set in stone, but I think that it would be pretty obvious that moving forward, historic brawl decks are going to be 100 cards. So Fred, I want to ask you, did you play any of these events? And if so, what did you play? Did you enjoy it? What did you run into? How were your 100 card historic brawl events?
Yeah, I loved it. I didn't play that much, mostly just because I've been enjoying regular historic so much. So a lot of my arena time has gone to that. But I did make sure I got my wins to get my card styles, and I played quite a few after that, probably 5 or 10 games after that. And I've really enjoyed it. I played all of my games with Chandra Awakened Inferno because my Clothis list was a little out of date, and I just wanted to try something else. And I really loved it. I think we've reached the critical mass of good cards where you don't have to put any draft chaff, even in a 100-card singleton historic deck. So that feels really nice, and that's when I feel like it was the good time to make a leap into 100 card, and I think they made the right call about the timing. I don't think standard historic should do that because, even as it is right now, you still have to play some random draft uncommons in a standard, or sorry, not standard historic, standard brawl. As of right now, you still have to play a couple random draft uncommons that are kind of synergistic with your commander if you're playing standard brawl. But with historic brawl, I think moving to 100 cards is a good idea. I loved the event. I liked the diversity of decks that I played against, although I know you didn't have exactly the same experience, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I loved playing the Chandra deck. It was super fun. It was just kind of a red mid-range deck that just sort of hoped to answer as many threats as possible with just damage-based removal, and then slap down a Chandra, get that emblem, put your opponent in the skillet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the 6 mana Chandra really does feel great to be able to just slam on turn 6, get that emblem, and then just kind of do your thing, destroying your opponent's stuff, burning things left and right, and just letting Chandra and her emblems kind of take care of things. You sent me your list. I played a couple of games with it, and I had a lot of fun with it. It was a good break from what I was playing, which was Winota, Joiner of Forces. Another part of the announcement that I just mentioned earlier was that 2 commanders that were originally banned in Brawl for power level reasons were being unbanned for this event and presumably going forward as well. So that's
Teferi and Oko.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Golos, Towerless Pilgrim, and my favorite card quickly climbing the ranks of my favorite card of all time, Winota, Joiner of Forces. So I played a lot of Winota. I don't know how many games I played overall, but I know that I got about 170 wins with the Winota deck. So playing your Chandra deck was a good break from all of that
from winning.
Winota. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you. So they made it clear that just like normal Brawl, they were using an algorithm or some sort of matchmaking magic behind the scenes to match Brawl commanders against each other of similar power level. So if you were playing a rinky-dink deck with a not popular commander, you wouldn't run into the most powerful decks, which would be Winota or the 5-color good stuff decks. So Golos, 5-color Niv Mizzet, the Eska, God of the Tree, those decks. But if you were playing in a popular deck like my deck, you would only see those super popular commanders. I would say about 70% of the games I played were against Golos 5-color good stuff, and it was an okay matchup. I definitely felt like I was it was more even than I was expecting it to be. So I want to ask you, what kind of matchups were you seeing with that Chandra deck? Did you feel that you were in a top tier of commanders, or were you just playing against a lot of a huge diverse number of decks?
Yeah, I definitely encountered a lot more diversity than you did in terms of the decks I played against. I did play against 2 Golos, I believe, and 1 Winota, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I played against 1 Essica, 1 Niv Mizzet, and then mostly just, I think, Planeswalkers that people would have fun with. A couple Clothis. I played against a few Clothis. I have a soft spot for Clothis, and I think Clothis is good. I think it's unironically a good commander for Historic Brawl.
We were talking about this offline a little bit before, but Clothis is a lot better than it reads on the surface. Yeah. Once it's on the battlefield, it's more powerful than you'd expect it to be.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really wins so many matchups. Um, yeah, anything if they're trying to aggro you down, if they're graveyard based, it puts a real hindrance on their plans. Great card. But yeah, and I played against a few like Volky Tybalt lists. Yeah, I definitely encountered more diversity, and that's kind of the downfall of the algorithm. I think, like, you're basically only getting to play against Golos and other Winota with like the occasional Asika or Niv Mizzet. Um, but I understand the algorithm is kind of a necessary evil if you're going to have a non-ranked brawl mode.
Mm-hmm.
Because like people want to play against decks that would be fun for them. And then I think like the double downside is, what if I've built a Winota deck that's just fun for me? It's just humans and dogs,
Yeah.
Like I'm going to get paired against top tier decks if it's just based on the commander. But if you base it on the deck, there's a lot of wacky stuff that happens. So I don't know. There's no real good solution, but I think this is the best one that they could find.
I think so too, because I was having, I believe, over a 50% win rate against these good stuff Golos decks. I felt like I had major game against almost all of the decks that I was seeing, and I knew that all of them were like the tip top of what Historic Brawl had to offer. I know that if I got paired up against like a Yorvo or like a Questing Beast, one of these kind of like green stompy decks, that it kind of wouldn't really be a game. I was just like, so I would be so heavily favored in a matchup like that. Just creatures curving out against each other. So as much as I want to see matchups like that, playing my pet deck, which just happens to be one of the best decks in the format, it makes sense for those players to not match them up against the degeneracy that I'm doing. I do kind of wish there was a little bit more leniency there, like you were talking about, that you could occasionally try like a green stompy deck that you're doing pretty well with against a Winota, just to try it out, and then you can go back to where you were. I think it's fair to say both of us had a good time in this event. I had a very good time, just for the record. One of the conversations that's happening around this is that Historic Brawl is not always available in the arena client, and a lot of people feel very strongly about this. They think that there should be a permanent free queue for Historic Brawl inside the client anytime they want. So let me ask you, Fred, do you want to see a permanent free Historic Brawl queue in the client? And if there was, how would you play it? How often would you play it? Is that something you're interested in?
I don't want it as bad as I want Modern on Arena, but I will say I would play it. I would probably build more Historic Brawl decks if it weren't, and think more about the Historic Brawl decks I'm building if it weren't just, oh yeah, I guess I can play it for the week, I would probably be picking my favorite commanders and like building actual decks around them that I give a lot of thought to, giving a lot of thought to the format. I like the way these decks are built. I like the way there's a few staples that definitely go in every deck, and I like the way that like your commander sort of guides your deck building. I think it's fun. I would play it for sure. I would want there to be ranked though, and I know that's kind of antithetical to the purpose of the format, but like if they could just do some kind of elo where like you get dumped into the higher end of the elo if your deck is like you have a separate elo for all of your decks, and you get dumped, or for each of your commanders, and you get dumped into the high elo automatically if your commander is like Klothys or Golos or something, or Winota.
Sure. Yeah.
But then if you lose enough, then you will get paired against people playing, I don't know, what's a really bad commander? Rin and Seri Inseparable. Then like, so that like a Winota deck that's just built casually will eventually get to play against other casual decks.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think an ELO implementation would be good. Doesn't the like normal ranked queues for standard and just normal historic use some sort of like MMR math behind the scenes, as well as matching you with people in your metal grouping? So like you'll play against bronze players, but you're going to be playing against bronze players that are of your caliber with that MMR in the background. Is that true?
That sounds right. I don't actually know very much. I only play ranked for my daily wins.
Sure.
And then I do like events, like the little queues, to see how many wins I can get.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, but that sounds right.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, obviously, I think the fact that I got 170 wins during the 1 week that Historic Brawl was available, that yes, if there was a permanent queue for it, I would absolutely play it as much as possible because I love Historic Brawl. I love my Winota deck. And yeah, if it was available all the time for free and I didn't have to go to some weird Discord server or a subreddit to try to get games, it would probably become my, the way of playing Arena that I would focus on. And I think everyone would say that, right? Like everyone loves Historic Brawl and they want it. The question is Wizards going to give it to us? And what reasons would Wizards have to give it to us? I think that it's pretty clear to say that, Wizards wants us to focus on standard more than historic, right? Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, and I think it's a monetization thing. If I'm going to be cynical, which I mean, I don't think that's a controversial take. Like,
Hey,
they can monetize, huh?
Hey, let's do it. This is Gutshot. Let's be as cynical as we can.
All right, yeah, they can monetize standard in a way they can't monetize historic. Historic would never have been added to the permanent queue if they didn't have the idea to sell historic anthologies. And I think in that vein, Brawl and Historic Brawl are obviously cheaper formats just because you only need one copy of a card and your main way of getting cards is opening packs. So, like, you're going to have, like, all these, like, random rares that would only be good in Brawl that you can't get rid of anyway are going to construct these decks. I've never had to craft a card for a Brawl deck. And I mean, I've been playing since day one. Maybe that has something to do with it. But I've never had to craft a card for a Brawl deck. So, like, I've never, like I've built my Brawl decks as optimally as I think they can be built. You know what I mean? Like, I've never been like, oh, I don't want to craft anything for a Brawl deck. I've just never happened to have to build the best decks that I want to build. So I feel like part of their reluctance to add a queue for this might come from the fact that, players like I could envision you, like, not playing Standard. Well, you already don't play Standard, but I can envision you not playing Historic for, like, a few months if you could just play Historic Brawl. And, like, they would definitely be losing out on your money. Like, maybe you'd still get the pre-order for the new set, but, like, you just wouldn't buy, like, packs outside of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Lots of people say this, but it's true for me as well. When Historic Brawl is available and I want to play a new deck, I usually find a deck online and then tweak it to my, cards that I want to play, like 6-mana Chandra, for example. I try to get her in everything I can, and some other pet cards. Rise of the Wild Speaker or Return of the Wild Speaker is another pet card of mine. I think both of us, but that, like, when I do that, I am much more likely to craft random cards that I don't have. Like you, I've been playing since day one, but there are all of those cards that I would never go out of my way to get, but I don't feel bad spending a rare wild card if it's just one that I need. I know I'll always be able to use that one for any Historic Brawl deck. Like, I crafted a Combat Celebrant, just for my Winota deck. I would not craft for a Combat Celebrant to play some, rinky-dink combo deck in Modern, but in Historic, I mean. But
I would. Speak for yourself.
I know you would, but I did not feel bad spending that one Mythic rare wild card to put that card into my deck. So, like, having those Brawl decks kind of makes it a little easier to justify spending wild cards in a way that you wouldn't before. And we can argue that Wizards wants that, right? Wizards wants us to spend our wild cards and then be like, oh, I need more wild cards. I need to, buy packs so I can get more wild cards. But I hear what you're saying. I absolutely think it's a monetization thing. Wizards wants people playing Standard, and they only want you playing, Historic or Historic Brawl if you're buying these expensive Historic anthologies and sinking money into these remastered sets like Amonkhet and Kaladesh. So I guess the question is, what can we as players do to convince Wizards to add a historic queue? And I think just the best is just to, when these events come around, just play the hell out of them. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely don't feel bad playing or winning 170 games with the exact same deck and the exact same format, because I do think that that sends a message to Wizards. But I want to ask you, you're a huge fan of like doing the surveys and stuff for
Hmm.
Wizards. What is your answer to the idea of like, how do we tell Wizards this is something that we want?
Yeah, so my guilty pleasure under my unethical consumption under capitalism, I love answering surveys. I know it just gives free information to corporations, but it just I don't know, I soy face over it. It makes me feel heard. To clicking a box between strongly disagree and strongly agree is like heroin. I
Sure.
love them. So I will say like if Wizards is asking for my opinion, I will always give it if it's like made available. Hell, if Wizards isn't asking for my opinion, I'll still give it. Um, I liked this event. I see the card styles were worth it to me because they were historic cards anyway. Like the shock card style was in there, and
Mhm.
the growth spiral card style was in there. So like I wanted these card styles anyway. But like I guess I feel like if I don't know how to word this. Like, I wouldn't have spent my gold or gems if the card styles were not cards that I would use in historic anyway. So my issue is like I want to show them that I like this event, but at the same time, like if they let's say they want to charge 10,000 gold for an event and give you like a few random uncommon cards to let you play this format, I don't love any format enough to do that. You know, so
Okay.
if these
Okay.
rewards get any worse, like I'm not going to. I want a queue for this format, but they can't hold a format hostage behind a event with bad rewards. It's the same thing that Super Monkey Ball did. Like they had some very beloved games from the early 2000s, Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2, and then they remastered the shittiest game in the series, Banana. Well, not that's an exaggeration, but one of the bad games. They remastered it, and they essentially said, if fans of the classic Monkey Ball games, they made a tweet that said something like, if fans of the classic Monkey Ball games are excited to get those remastered or get new games in that vein, make sure you buy Banana Blitz Remastered to show us how much you love the series. It's like that sort of thing. It has that kind of energy to me. If you
Okay.
want the permanent queue for this format, play this event with bad rewards. Spend your in-game currency or your real money on an event with bad rewards, and just to show us that you want this queue that we should probably just provide because this format is fun.
Yeah, that's a interesting point. And then like you buy the stuff, you buy the game that you weren't super interested in, and then they have no other than a monetary incentive, they have no what's the term
Um,
obligation to the players that spent that money to actually do what they
Promissory
were.
estoppel.
Something like that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're spending all that money because of course they want you to buy the new thing, but they could just turn around and just not do what you want. It's like they could take all that and then be like, oh, we just decided we didn't want to do that, creative differences, or we decided to move on to something else. That would be very frustrating, I imagine. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for bringing up that point. That's not something that I thought about. But yeah. So one thing about Historic Brawl that I want to make sure that I mention is that I actually like Standard Brawl too, and I know that's like a meme that like no one likes Standard Brawl, no one wants to play it, no one's playing it on in paper, and people are only playing it on Arena because it's all we get. I actually really like
Yeah.
I like Standard Brawl, and I wanted to stay. And I worry that a permanent queue for Historic would absolutely kill Standard Brawl, and I'd hate to see that. I think that would be really sad. Of course, I can't say what I'd do in the future, but I'd like to think that if a brand, I would have my favorite Historic commanders that I feel were at a power level for the Historic format.
Hmm.
But if a brand new wacky commander comes out in the newest Standard set, I could build a standard commander or a standard brawl deck with that as a commander to have fun with it, and that could be my way of participating in the standard pool of cards, right? Do you think that standard brawl would just disappear completely if historic brawl was permanent on Arena?
I think so. I don't know. Here's the thing, right? They might take away the queue because it wouldn't do as well, but look at MTGO. It's vastly less populated than Magic Arena, and they have no trouble firing tournaments for formats as specific as like flashback drafts, Pauper, Modern, Pioneer, which is a dead format mostly, Standard, stuff like that. They can fire those events all day on demand, and they have a much lower player base, and all of their events cost money. So the way that I see it, like if Magic Online can do that, Arena can have any queues and fire them, and Arena does that too. Like the historic sets that aren't very popular, like the original Ixalan set and like Rivals of Ixalan and stuff, like those drafts fire when they host them on Arena. So like it's not a matter of can, it's not a matter of like will they die. It's a matter of will Wizards kill those queues because they want to funnel you into a different game mode. Yeah, which at a certain point I think there's a valid reason to, but that's the question I would ask.
It happened to me once. Years ago, I used to be really into Standard Pauper on Magic Online. There was a whole like outside the client kind of tournament structure for Standard Pauper. This would have been around Return to Ravnica back 2012, 2013. And I loved that format, but that was also around the time where Magic Online had a specific queue for Standard Pauper, and they removed it because they removed it plus a whole bunch of other stuff like Legacy Tribal Wars and a couple of others. And it was what you said. They got rid of those because they weren't firing at the rate that they liked, and they wanted to consolidate and all that stuff. And it really hurt the Standard Pauper community. Like it still existed, people still played it, but it wasn't there in the client for people to be like, oh, Standard Pauper is a thing that exists. Maybe I should check that out. Maybe I should see if there are decks in that format that I like. I would just be afraid of something like that happening to Standard Brawl. I would like Standard Brawl to still be 60 cards. I think that's appropriate. It kind of lets you have your deck be denser in terms of powerful cards, and it's just a tighter experience. I think I do enjoy that. I kind of wish Commander could just be 60 cards, but that's
I disagree on, but
that's just me. But I want a historic queue, but I don't want anything to happen to the standard queue, and I want people to give Standard Brawl more of a chance. But I think that's just where it's going to sit. We kind of are just at the mercy of Wizards / Hasbro on this, whether they want to give this queue to us, and in the meantime there are outside ways to matchmake for Historic Brawl. However, you can't do 100 card Historic Brawl at the moment. The way that matchmaking is coded, Brawl decks are just 60 cards, and there's not a differentiating between Historic Brawl and Standard Brawl. It's just Brawl, so you cannot matchmake. You cannot challenge somebody with a 100 card Historic Brawl deck and still get the commander. So Wizards needs to fix that ASAP. If they're not going to give us a queue, they need to let us play this queue outside the client and do matchmaking there. I'm sure you can agree with that as well, right?
Yeah, it would be absolutely silly if they didn't. They should just allow you to like play freeform against opponents, but add a commander.
Oh yeah, just like a box. Yeah, just like a box you could take to, just add that. Yeah, I think that would be good. Historic Brawl, yeah, we both like it. I would love to play it a lot more than Fred, but I think we can both agree we would be happy if a permanent queue was added to Magic Arena, and I think that would be like one of the biggest news items that the Arena community could get. Right? Like, could you imagine how excited the overall community would be if we just got that out of nowhere?
Yeah, and I'd probably stop playing Standard too. Like, if that happened, I would probably just play Historic and Historic Brawl. I might play more Historic Brawl than Historic. The problem I have right now is just that I don't get a bunch of packs and gems at the end, or gold or whatever at the end of the month.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I know that's something. You're very prize focused, very rewards focused. So that makes a lot of sense for you. And if there was a permanent queue, I would play decks other than Winota. I would get a couple of games in with Noda. I would get a couple of games in with Winota, every day, just get a couple of them in, and then move on to fun decks like your 6 mana Chandra one. So hopefully Wizards hears the cries, the pleas, the angry tweets, the Reddit essays, that this is what the community wants. So unless you have something else you want to say about 100 card Historic Brawl, we can move on to our end segment, aka the Scoop Step.
All right, yeah. Welcome to the Scoop Step. Today we're doing another edition of random card reviews where I pull 5 cards off of Scryfall using the random function and we talk about each one. Do you want to read this first one?
Oh, yeah, this is a classic one. I think that this is from Alpha. The version that we're seeing on screen looks like it's from Unlimited or Revised, but I think this is an Alpha card. Glasses of Urza. So this may actually be the one of the first instances of hearing the name Urza on a Magic card. It is a 1-mana artifact, so 1 generic mana. You may tap to look at your opponent's hand. Man, Wizards does not want to give us this effect anymore. They hate like any of this permanent being able to see your opponent's hand, don't they?
Yeah, do you feel like this card would be playable in Standard? I'm not saying that they would print it because they wouldn't, but if this card became legal in Standard against Mark Rosewater's wishes, do you think it would see play?
No, I don't think so, because cards printed nowadays are so value focused that unless you're especially for constructed formats, like maybe this would be a limited card if you need like a 23rd card, but like Standard and other constructed formats, every card has to be giving you multiple cards worth of value, and I don't think this gets there. It's cool to know what's in your opponent's hand, but most of the time you can deduce what they probably have, and unless you're playing a deck like one of my favorite decks, Infected, you have to know exactly what's in their hand. You rather this just be a Ravenous Chupacabra, an Uro, or something like that.
Would you play this in Modern Infect?
No.
Okay.
Back when Gitaxian Probe got banned, there were a lot of people, and myself included, I was one of these people, who wanted to continue running something that allowed us to see our opponent's hand. And I think the meta proved to us that was a mistake, and no one really tries doing that anymore. Gitaxian Probe was just such a unique effect, with it being free, looking at your opponent's hand, drawing a card, that kind of stuff. I would not play this in effect. I don't know exactly where this would see play these days, but it's pretty cool. And if you ever just want a pair of glasses in your Magic game, I guess this is the one you're going towards.
He's also never been depicted wearing glasses on like any other art.
Is that true?
So I'm pretty sure. So it's like weird that he's got them here. That these are his. I don't know.
Oh, and he has sunglasses. He has sunglasses too. I definitely think that this is a lot more playable than the sunglasses of Urza.
Those just let you turn white mana into red mana, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like once per turn or something?
Yeah, something like that. This is, regardless of whether this is playable in a modern context, this is you definitely want the glasses over the sunglasses.
For sure, yeah. So up next we've got Sparring Mummy. 3 and a white for a 3/3 zombie at common from Amonkhet. When Sparring Mummy enters the battlefield, untap target creature. Pretty simple. This was like a mediocre common in draft. You would take it sometimes just to like pseudo-vigilance one of your creatures for the turn, but usually you don't want to play a 4-mana 3/3. Like if this were a 4/3 or 3/4, would probably be pretty good, but this is just an okay common. This is your 20th, 21st card, usually.
I actually played a good amount of Amonkhet Limited, and I remember this card because you open it up, it's a white card, it has one of those faceless mummies on it, and you think, oh, awesome, Fan Bearer, this is a great card. And then you actually read the card and you realize it's not Fan Bearer, it's a little bit worse than that. So
a little bit worse.
Don't get your Sparring Mummies and your Fan Bearers mixed up like that. Did you like this Did you like this depiction of mummies and Amonkhet, like just like no face, completely wrapped up and moving around like they're humans? Did you like that depiction?
Yeah, I thought that was really neat. I think when they do the same creature type on different planes, they need to do cool stuff to differentiate it, and I think the Amonkhet mummies were a great way to do that with the zombie creature type.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a stroke of genius, I think. And I do like the Black Liliana Planeswalker card from Amonkhet. I can't remember its actual name, where she is sitting like Cleopatra, and she's being fed and being waited on by the mummies. That always gets a chuckle out of me.
That's a pretty cool art. Yeah, I liked the Mummies and Amonkhet. I want to return to that plane. That would be on my short list of planes I would want to return to, just below Tarkir before they fucked it up.
Yeah,
So you want to read this next one? This is another powerful one.
sure, this is okay, yeah. Longtime players will definitely know this card. Merchant Scroll. 2 mana, so 1 generic and 1 blue. It's a sorcery. Originally from Homelands, but this looks like a promo. Oh, this is a Judge promo.
Judge promo, yep.
Yeah. Search your library for a blue instant card, reveal that card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So just, tutors for a blue instant card. And I don't think you need us to tell you how many good blue instant cards there are in the game of Magic. I do like this Judge promo here. It's looks like it's Ixalan themed. So we have a pirate looking at a scroll with arcane writing on it, and it looks like they're about to go find their mystical tutor.
Yeah. Well, I hope that he presses stop when it says seating.
Yeah, for sure. A rare find suitable for the most discerning collector. If this is, does Merchant Scroll see play anymore? Like, because I know old vintage decks. EDH. I know old vintage decks back in the day would run one of Merchant Scroll. I do think that this is restricted in vintage, just because it's so powerful to be able to, because it's a 2 mana tutor for probably what's your best card. It lets you go get
Ancestral
Force of Will,
Visions.
Ancestral,
or Recall.
Recall, and let you go get your Force of Will to protect whatever shenanigans you're going to do. So probably the best card printed in Homelands, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was some weird land in that set. But
Well,
yeah, that sounds right.
Are you going to try to say it's Autumn Willow is the best card in the set?
I don't know what that does.
Yeah. So, okay, Merchant Scroll. You don't need us to tell you how good Merchant Scroll is, and this looks like a really cool Judge promo for it. So,
yes. So next we've got a card I had not heard of before. This is Escape Routes. It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment that lets you pay 2 and a blue to return target white or black creature you control to its owner's hand. It's a common in help me out here. Plane Shift.
Plane Shift, yes.
Plane Shift. Yeah. This is a weird ass card. I think if you were to try to apply it to an actual deck, I guess it protects your white and black creatures from removal, or it lets you repeat the enters the battlefield trigger on something like a Thraben Inspector would be what I would think of this. But it's so weird that it just specifically can help out white or black creatures you control when it's a mono blue card. This is not a card that would be printed today. This is super goofy.
No, yeah. So this is from the Apocalypse block, which was kind of the first real attempt at a multicolor block. I don't think you can call Legends. I mean, it was multicolor, but it wasn't multicolor. This is the first attempt at a Ravnica block, or maybe Shadow more, where they were really trying to play with colors and color effects, and this block is where we first got our very first names for the shards, which we do not use anymore. But if you ever hear Anna, Necra, Dega, Seta as names for shards, that's where this comes from. So basically, you have to kind of think of this as an Esper card, and I think that this is just an example of how bad cards used to be, because I cannot imagine this being a card printed these days, either with the color restriction or just the cost. I imagine it would maybe cost a little more to play, but once it's in play, it would just be any creature for maybe 2 mana, or maybe even 1 mana if it cost enough. I
think they would do it the other way around.
You think so?
Just because in limited, it gives you so much. If you have a bunch of mana, they basically can never remove your creatures, which is a really powerful effect in limited.
Yeah,
you're right. I would think they would make it cost 1 or 2, and then make it cost 4 or 5 to activate.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna defer to you in terms of real game design knowledge, but yeah, I think this is just an example of cards being bad in the format. But I do think it's a good clue that if you're drafting blue cards or white or black, you want to be thinking about those 3 colors together. So maybe it's useful as a signpost to let you know that in that limited format, that's what you're supposed to do. The most interesting thing about this card is the art, I think.
Yeah, I like the art too. I don't know. I think I would probably. I haven't drafted a lot of plane shift, to be honest with you, but I might would draft this. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe there's good ETB effects.
Listen to LSV. I know that the Apocalypse block is a huge he's a huge fan of it and has done a lot of it, so listen to his opinions about Apocalypse draft other than ours. But I do have to highlight this art. It's like you can't even tell that this is a Magic card art. It's basically a bunch of like hard Scrabble people. There's a guy without a shirt on who's like trying to navigate this like fetid bog, and they're trying to light their way with torchlight. It's a very nice piece, but doesn't scream Magic. I don't think we'd see a piece like this in a modern set, but it is nice and a good example of how diverse art used to be back in the early parts of the game.
Yeah, it's more of like a fantasy book art, it looks like to me. I don't know. But we have our last card. You want to read this one?
Sure, yeah. Oh, okay. Now this is more of a modern card here. Flying Crane Technique. This is a gold instant. It is 3 generic and then one of each Jeskai color. 3 generic, 1 blue, 1 red, and 1 white. And we can immediately see that this is a Jeskai card from Khans of Tarkir. Untap all creatures you control. They gain flying and double strike until end of turn. And then the art, some obvious Jeskai monks are jumping into the air, doing their martial arts poses in the air with a very picturesque Jeskai art in the background. Man, this card is so cool. I love this.
I guess I'm just mad because I've opened up so many of these as my rare opening cons packs as a kid trying to get fetch lands.
Yeah.
But I have negative memories of this card. The card's fine. It's just untap all creatures you control. They gain flying and double strike till end of turn. It's a rare instant. Like, this card's good and limited and nowhere else. That's what I would say. This is kind of an overrun in Jeskai.
I was just about to say that. Overrun in Jeskai. That's kind of just what this is.
Yeah.
You're only playing this if your opponent did some really bad blocks, or if you can just end the game.
You can also just do it right after you attack if they don't have any flyers, because it gives them flying too.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean this will end the game sometimes, but that's also one of the slowest formats in history in terms of limited. So like, it's full of 3-mana 2/2s and stuff. So like these game winners for finishers for aggro are like a lot worse in that format.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's nice for there to be a card here, like because this looks like it's a card meant to like break those stalled limited games, right? It's like, okay, Jeskai, if you're playing Jeskai, you can open this. This is your ticket for breaking those really bogged down games. I totally agree with you. This is just a limited card, but like the entire package of this card and then other cards in the con set, like Mantis Rider or Tassiger or what's the one with the guy punching the bear, Savage Punch?
Yeah.
Like Cons was so cool, and I love the flavor and like just the attitude and presentation of all of those cards. It really kind of cemented Cons as a really cool plane that I know a lot of people want to go revisit. I would love to see a new take on the Jeskai. If we ever go back, and this card, looking at this really makes me want to go back to Tarkir and see the Cons again.
Yeah, nothing. So there's nothing that makes me want to go back to Tarkir more than looking at Tarkir cards, except looking at current cards.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I miss Tarkir a lot. I miss the storytelling. The storytelling of that block was phenomenal. Not to say we have had bad storytelling lately, but sometimes it just hasn't really been there at all, and sometimes it's been a little bit hit or miss. But I don't know. I miss Tarkir for so many reasons. But yeah, we want to go back to Tarkir. Is what this card is reminding me of.
Tarkir is in Pioneer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the fetch lands are banned. So we know that at least nominally they're still trying to get Pioneer onto Arena. So if that happens, we might be lucky enough to see a Tarkir remastered set come to Arena. Would you play that?
Oh, I would, and I think they might keep the fetch lands legal on Arena just because shuffling isn't an issue when the computer does it for you. So maybe Historic will have fetch lands legal. I want to play with Siege Rhino on Arena, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, Siege Rhino would be a wonderful card to get into the Arena clan, especially with Restoration Angel and Thragtusk is already in there. Some sort of Abzan. Oh, I would play the hell out of that. So yeah, Flying Crane Technique, not a great card, but really nostalgic and fun looking. But with that, I think that we are at the end of our episode. So thank you for listening to this episode of Gut Shot. We really appreciate you listening to us. You can do all the stuff I said at the beginning of the episode, like the video, subscribe, comment in the comments below, or tweet at us at GutShotPod. You can follow me on Twitter at AgraRhetoric. Frederick is at Fredass_B on Twitter, or WarCrimesUbu on Twitch. And you can follow the show on Twitter. I just said this. You can follow the show on Twitter at GutShotPod.
This has been Gutshot, the only Magic the Gathering podcast that will put you on the political compass if you don't listen to it. See you next time.
Later.